President Trump addresses the United Nations, and while he and Melania Trump are at the escalator, it quits working and then starts working again. And while President Trump is addressing the UN, all of a sudden the teleprompter quits working and then it just starts working again. So is the equipment working as well as the UN is? Or is this disrespect to the President of the United States, representing a nation that funds much of the UN efforts because they seem to be pretty good freeloaders on our dime? But no worries. President Trump just absolutely torches the place in his speech, and rightfully so. And I want to talk why I am so grateful that we have a strong leader that's willing to go up against the globalist ideology. Welcome back to the Reveal Report. I'm your host, John Wilson. Let's get into it. As Trump is going to address the UN, all of a sudden, as he and Melania Trump are at the escalator, it quits working and then it starts working again. As Trump is giving his speech to the UN, all of a sudden the teleprompter cuts out and then it comes back on again. So it could be coincidental. The equipment could be, almost as useless as much of the UN, or it's possible that it was disrespect to the president of the United States because they do not like the fact that he is not a globalist and he's willing to go up against their globalist agenda. You have to see the previous administration, Lion Joe Biden and his weak colleagues, they supported the globalist ideology because, the puppet master who was probably pulling his strings, Barack Hussein O, and those people were the ones that were supporting globalist ideology because we know that it was George Soros that was funding Barack Hussein O to become the president of the United States. And it's George Soros who said that American sovereignty is in the way of a globalist paradigm, a globalist paradise. And so George Soros and the left-wing Democrats, they love to erode away American sovereignty. And they even try to change the definition of nationalism. They try to equate it only to Adolf Hitler, so that if you believe in national sovereignty, then you must be a fascist Hitler, you must be a Nazi, because nobody can like nationalism. See, the problem is not nationalism. It's not the term nationalism or the idea of putting your nation first. We are America first. We are not America isolationists, but we are America first. And there's nothing wrong with that. That does not make us Nazi fascists. You see, the left redefines the language again so they can put that label on us so that we come out and say, oh, no, we're not like that. So then we buy into the globalist agenda. You see, it was Barack Hussein O who was pushing the Paris Climate Accord, which was just another rebranding of Agenda 21, which became UN 2030, which became the Great Reset, the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, and all of the leaders were coming together to see a globalist paradigm where there are no borders and we're fighting the endless war against the endless terror of climate change, which means the US was funneling a lot of money to the UN and putting it right into their bank accounts as we were the ones paying it on our tax dollars and fighting an endless war with a tyrant that was supposed to destroy us many decades ago, and it seems to never go away. Seems to be just a little money Ponzi scheme to redirect the money to the players that they want to be the winners, picking winners and losers. You see, the UN wanted to tear down borders, and that's exactly what the left-wing Democrats were doing because they believe in this globalist paradise, like John Lennon's song in 1971. Imagine there are no borders, there's no heaven, there's no hell. Everybody can just have their own subjective truth, and we can all sing Kumbaya and get along. As you see, that doesn't work very well because the radical left only wants you to buy into their ideology, and the moment that you speak against it, well, they might just cut the escalator off. They might just cut the teleprompter off, or they might just try to put a bullet in you. That's the radical left for you. The globalist leaders are no different than the radical left that is in our nation. And we have a president now that is strong enough to stand up against the globalist agenda as well as stand up against the radicals in our own nation. Now, that makes him hated sometimes by world leaders on the outside as well as people on the inside. But the truth of the matter is, every leader who has ever made a great impact was always misunderstood and were controversial figures. Not everybody and not everybody agreed with George Washington all the time. Not everybody liked Abraham Lincoln, obviously. But these are the ones that were on the right side of history. And I'm glad that President Trump and us who actually believe in these principles will be on the right side of history. You see, the ones that cheer on the ending of the life of Charlie Kirk and call him a racist are the same ones that have the same cowardice spirit that was on the side of killing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the ones that was on the cowardice side to end his life as he was fighting for social rights. Charlie Kirk was nothing more than a modern day social rights activist. And so we find that Trump goes out there and he absolutely torches them because he talks about how the UN is nothing more than a paper tiger. They make paper threats unto the world leaders like Putin and threaten them, but end up following up and doing nothing. And as we see, President Trump is probably going to have to take action against Putin, and I believe he will because President Trump does give time for them to make the right decisions. But as you can see in time past, he's willing to make a move. He's willing to take out terrorist leaders. He's willing to take out their nuclear facilities. And as a matter of fact, he'll go right into the UN where the Iranian uh, leader delegates or whatever are there and right in their face talk about how we took out the nuclear facility and they can never have a nuclear weapon. I appreciate the strength. Ronald Reagan was strong, and now he is written down on the right side of history. President Trump will be written down on the right side of history because the globalists, they want to use climate change for endless funding into their agenda and their ideology. And they were even wanting to implement what's called the Great Reset. One of the best articles to read on it is go find the Goldman Sachs article on the Great Reset. And what they were trying to do is resurrect and re implement. Operation Choke Point, which President Obama was a part of, and it was Operation Choke Point 2.0, which is to use investors, to use the banking apparatus, to use the insurance companies to cut off the flow of money to companies they deem to be high risk, which would be gun manufacturers, ammunition manufacturers. This would be gasoline companies and so on and so forth. Make them high risk companies, cut off the money flow to those companies and redirect it to the players you want to win. This is why they were implementing ESG scores. And this is why BlackRock under Fink was trying to redirect the money. This is why they went after middle class businesses. This is why they went against our churches. Anybody that would speak out against it, they wanted to silence them. And then they wanted to redirect the money into big corporations like Amazon, Nike, who would go woke overnight because once they got the shot of heroin inside of them, all of a sudden BlackRock, working for the Federal Reserve, comes along and says, hey, now that you're addicted to that, now that you like that money, I think there should be some strings attached. And then they push wokeism. And overnight, they went woke, aligning to ESG scoring. They even threatened companies by saying that they're going to go away from the old form of credit score into digital currency and to digital tracking, meaning that they're going to look at what you're putting on your social media pages, and they can determine your ESG scores for how you're helping and hurting the environment, how you're helping or hurting social causes, also looking into your digital footprint and seeing if you're worthy for credit or not. So they can cut off your credit at any time. And then they were pushing the idea of a digital currency so that they can direct that through the Federal Reserve. They were trying to implement things to crush the small banking system so it's all redirected to the Federal Reserve that works for the whim of the federal government. And so the UN, the globalists, and the radical left were all in a league with one another to tear down the borders of our country, infiltrate the system, and flip it upside down. They love violent revolution in the street, and then they love to lie to us at the top. So we buy into it thinking that nationalism, putting America first, that's the evil. The people on the right speaking against it, that's violence. So that people will buy into the globalist agenda and tear our country absolutely down. The radical left hates our country. They hate the Constitution. They hate the Bill of Rights. They hate the inalienable rights endowed to us by our Creator God. They hate the whole concept of God. They want to become our God. And they were in league with the globalists on the UN stage. And now that President Trump walks in there and he puts America first and he torches the UN because of all their waste and not doing anything, because after World War II, Harry Truman actually was involved in the implementation of the United Nations to stop wars because there came out of World War II. There was the attempt to try to to bring peace to the world. But as you can see, the UN doesn't bring peace. They don't stop any wars. They're a paper tiger that does nothing and then asks America to keep funding all their radical ideology. And the moment that Trump walks in and says, we're not doing that anymore, you can see that they don't like him. They never liked him from day one. They want the radical left in because the radical left has no problem tearing our country down to join league with them. That's why they let fentanyl come over the border. That's why they let constant illegal immigration to come across the border. That's why they don't mind taxing us to death. That's why they don't mind trying to implement ESG scoring and trying to track our digital footprint and trying to suppress our speech on social media. That's why they have no problem sending federal authorities, federal bureaucrats after Facebook and after Instagram and after Twitter before it became X and trying to tell them you can't report on the Hunter laptop theory. You can't report on any of those things, which is what they said was conspiracy theory. It actually became a fact. You can't say any of those things because they didn't want Trump in, because Trump was a hand grenade on their globalist ideology. And when he got in there, he put America first, and thank God he did. And he said, we're going to build a strong nation. America is going to be great again. And so we see that Trump is not liked on the UN stage, and rightfully so. Now, um, Trump has made some very strong statements, though, against Russia, and I am praying that God will help our president. He's in a great challenge right now, trying to navigate and brokering deals between Russia and Ukraine, and then also trying to bring peace to the Middle East between Israel and Palestine. And Trump is now, he's given time, but now he's coming out strong. He's telling Hamas and them that they better release the hostages. And what is he going to do about it? He's probably going to take his hands off Israel, who's at the door of the Gaza Strip. They're at the door, and he's probably going to take his hands off and tell Israel, tell Bibi, just do whatever you have to, win the war. It's done, and Israel can do that pretty quickly. And so the only thing that is actually helping um, the Palestinian people is President Trump is trying to slow up Bibi right now, and Israel would love nothing more than to go in there and eliminate the threat. And you can understand after October 7th, they would want to do that. And so if Trump is Bibi's puppet, he's not doing a very good job at it because he's the one that's slowing things up. If anything, Bibi's actually listening to Trump rather than the other way around, unlike what the grifters on the so-called right will try to tell you. But Trump's probably going to take his hands off and let Israel do their job. If they do not release those hostages, they do not come to the table of reasoning. And I want to tell you, I vehemently do not support the two-state solution, because the moment that Israel makes any compromise and gives up any territory to them, they're going to want to take more. They want from the river to the sea. They want it all. They want Israel to be ended completely. They want to take the entire land back. And so there's a great debate on that. But I want to tell you that I believe that there's grifters on the right that are selling their soul and joining league with the radical left that are spreading revisionist ideas that is absolutely anti-America and anti-Israel, anti-the West. And there's grifters on the right that's willing to sell their soul out for popularity and for gain and for money. We refuse to do that. We want to be a consistent voice of truth. And I believe that President Trump is trying to do his very best, but I believe he's now coming up to a point that the expiration date of mercy is about ready to be ended, and the hammer's going to be laid down if they don't release those hostages. And I thank God that we have a strong leader who, when he says it, he's kind of like that old Western and the Wild Wild West. He's got that weird twitch in his eye. You don't know, is he really going to pull the trigger? Is he not going to pull the trigger? I like that. I like the fact that they have to keep questioning. Is he really going to do it? Is he not going to do it? What's he going to do? What's he going to do next? I think that's a smart strategy as a leader. And now Trump is coming out. He's been trying to work with Vladimir Putin. I believe Putin's been trying to play Trump, but I don't think it's a great idea to keep trying to play Trump. I think Trump now is saying that he thinks the Ukrainian people can win, and I think he's going to push the United Nations to try to be involved in helping that and supporting that. I don't think we're going to be full blown into it. I think he went out there and he torched the UN, and now he's baiting them and challenging them to get involved to help the Ukrainians win this war. And I think that it was very noble of Trump to try to broker peace deals, but when peace doesn't work, then you got to take action. You can't tell your children, "Hey, if you stop that, you're going to get disciplined if you don't stop that." And then if you don't ever discipline them, they don't trust your words and they're just going to keep doing it. So at some point, you do have to use a level of discipline. And so I believe Trump understands these principles very well. At first, he tries to work with everybody. He's a businessman. He tries to broker deals. He tries to do it by the art of a deal. But when that doesn't work, then he knows that something has to be done. And so I believe that Trump is handling this correctly. And I believe something does need to be done if Putin is not going to bring this war to an end. And if the terrorist Hamas in the Middle East is not willing to hand over the hostages, then I believe that we need to take our hands off and let Israel do what they need to do to win the war. I know that Israel is the only nation that is not allowed to win the war. They are ultra hyper criticized to the point that they can't even breathe without it being wrong, and they can't even fight a war. I mean, when they did the clever thing of with the pagers and it detonating, and which should probably be in some Hollywood movie at some point in the future. I mean, they were criticized for that. They operated that so strategically, and it's Hamas that will build tunnels and build their safety protection to save themselves under schools and under hospitals, and they have no problem killing the innocent of their own to try to use that as media propaganda against Israel. And so, and I know we all think from sitting on the sidelines that we are the experts of war, not realizing there's also a fog of war when you are trying to fight for the future of your nation. And so I don't think every decision you make is right. As a matter of fact, a lot of us married people, when we're in an argument with our spouse and we're debating with our spouse, we don't get everything right either, because there is the emotions involved. There's the fog of all of that. And could you imagine on a stage where the future of your nation is on the line? I'm pretty sure that's pretty hard to navigate through. And so my prayers are with President Trump. My prayers are that there will somehow become stabilization in the Middle East, and there be stabilization between um, Ukraine and Russia. And I believe that Trump also realizes that China's always got their eye on Taiwan. And so if he's just a paper tiger like the United Nations, then China's going to be incentivized to go after Taiwan. And I think a strong leader is what's keeping China from trying to make that attempt to take over Taiwan. And so my prayers are continuously with Taiwan as well. And so I want to say I thank God that there's a strong leader back there, because if we had Calamity Kami Harris, we still have open borders. We still have fentanyl pouring over the streets. We still have drag queen story hours trying to turn our children into everything but what God designed them to be, making them social justice Marxist warriors in the street. We would have more of these assassin types trying to eliminate us. We would have suppression of speech. We wouldn't be able to probably have this YouTube channel. We probably wouldn't be able to have our social media pages. And I'm sure they would try to go after Jeff Bezos, Amazon, try to suppress us even on the internet, and see if they could try to tweak the very laws of hate speech to try to get us off, try to get our websites down for the internet as well, and try to take global domination and turn America into nothing more than just one of these third world countries that is involved in this globalist agenda. And so you can maybe the technology is about as useless as many of the UN decisions, or maybe they were disrespecting our president, but you can turn off the escalator, you can turn off the teleprompter. He's still going to torture you with the truth, and he's still going to stand strong. And I want to say thank you to the president for being a strong leader. My prayers are with him. America, I love you. God bless you.